Hey, what up, guys? No regular upload on this Monday. This time I'm just doing a podcast. That being said, a lot more content coming out, but this one just getting down to business. It's pretty much going over how to make golf vlogs and basically my tips and tricks for people who want to be a creator in this space. So I think I have some, legit. I'm not like a huge creator by subscriber count by any means, but I've made a lot of content. So this would be perfect for anyone who's interested in getting into it. And I'll be sharing my tips and tricks. So that being said, before I get into it, the number one rule, the number one thing I want you to take away from this if you decide to create content for golfing, basically the number one rule is do not deter or take anything away from other people in your group that you're golfing with when you're doing any golf content creation. So I know we see a lot of funny, content out there, the Bob Does Sports guys, the good guys, but they have special privileges where they probably are on well understanding with the course and the people that are with to do what they do. But for us normal guys, just make sure you're playing with pace, be respectful, let people know that you're filming. And for me personally, I usually play with people that I know, and I let them know if I'm going to record and make sure they're comfortable with it before I do so. So that's just my number one rule. If you're going to take anything away from that, if you're going to create content for golf on the course, just be respectful of everyone there and keep the pace. So that being said, largely vlogging consists of two main components, which is one, capturing the footage, and then two, editing that footage that you capture. So I'm going to go through both, and there's one subcomponent which is playing golf while vlogging, and I'll touch on that last. But largely those are the two main things basically when it comes to content creation in general, is capturing footage and then editing the footage that you have. So pretty much I'm going to go through the setups that I've gone through in terms of this whole channel and how it's evolved to what I have today. But essentially, starting right off the bat, my first setup was just with an iPhone and a gimbal from DJI. So I will put my gimbal recommendations in the there'll be affiliate links in the description below. But basically, I'm going to go through each setup, talk about pros and cons, and then pretty much just show you how I've evolved from what I'm currently using today. But I started off with just the iPhone 12 Pro Max, just filming all my vlogs on there. I filmed everything in 4K, so it took a lot of data. I had the biggest, memory-sized iPhone that I could get. Filmed everything in 4K, but I exported in 1080. So lots of pros and cons with just using an iPhone. The pros is that most everyone has an iPhone in their pocket, so it is cost effective in that regard. The quality is actually pretty decent, and it's good enough to make a successful channel. So Not a Scratch Golfer, he actually has his whole channel made on an iPhone, and he has almost 40,000 subscribers. So it's a testament to how powerful an iPhone is. And it's more about yes, good looking content is good, but the content has to be quality in itself. And so that's how you get more subscribers. It's just delivering on the quality of the actual content rather than the quality of how it looks. That being said, there are some cons with just using the iPhone. It can be distracting having your phone as your main shooting device because you have notifications coming from texts, you have phone calls that come in. Anything with using a smartphone basically is a con because you could just be doing normal day-to-day stuff, and when you're in the zone, you don't want those kind of things distracting you from capturing the content when you're on the course. Another thing that can be a big problem is battery. And if you have an iPhone, the ports on the iPhone is just a lightning port, right? So if you want to plug in a mic to that port, it kind of takes up that spot where you can plug in a charger. And then, what happens when your battery starts running out for your iPhone and you have the mic port plugged in, you're not going to be able to use your mics. So that's also a problem. Storage capacity is also an issue. If you have a smaller storage or memory-sized iPhone, then that's going to be a problem if you're going to shoot in 4K or better. And then lastly is heat. So a problem with a lot of, content creation outdoors is the fact that heat is a problem. In my tobacco road vlog, I ended up pretty much basically having a Ziploc bag with ice and water, and I dunked it in there to cool off my phone because it was not having a good time. So it ended up making some of the pictures a little fuzzy for a couple of the holes because there was fog on the lens from the heat and the cold of the water that I dunked my phone in. But heat is definitely an issue. So tips on using an iPhone for your capturing device for golf content. So first, if you're going to spend more money on any part of your setup, just improve the audio aspect of things. So the Rode mics or wireless transceiver mics are a very good upgrade. So rather than upping the picture quality, I think I would definitely focus on audio quality. And I'll leave the Rode mics that I use in the description below. And if you have a new iPhone with a cinematic mode, do not use it. That cinematic mode is to create that cinematic depth of field look. And pretty much it's only for, those cinematic shots. But when you're on the course, you want to see all of the golf course. You don't want to just see a cinematic, subject and then the background blurred. So I suggest don't using the cinematic mode on your content if you're doing like vlogs or anything. It doesn't really make sense in that case. I know it's like a feature and everyone goes cool and ham about it, but it doesn't make sense in this case. So just another tip there. All right, another tip is that if you're using the Shot Tracer app on your iPhone, you have to turn off the HDR footage for your videos when editing in the Shot Tracer app, because it will turn out to be like these really muted green and like gray tones in the video. So there's a setting in the iPhone that says, I guess you go into formats when you go into the camera app and then turn on most compatible versus high efficiency, I believe it's called. So most compatible, make sure you're not shooting in HDR and it's more friendly to the other applications that you'll be uploading your footage to. If you have the most compatible not turned on, if you upload, even if you record a video in HDR and then you upload it to YouTube, it'll be this green muted, like gray, like toned video, and it doesn't look good. So that's pretty much the pros and cons of using an iPhone. I used it for a good portion of the channel, like the first year plus, and it's very, very effective tool. All right, next up is what I currently shoot on, which is a mirrorless camera. I have the GH5 Mark II Panasonic mirrorless camera. It's a Micro Four Thirds format, and basically, what you get with getting a dedicated shooter is like flexibility in the formats that you're shooting. And then it's kind of nice having a separate dedicated device to shoot just video, where a lot less variables are introduced. And therefore, you want to basically get rid of all variables that would inhibit you from capturing your footage on the course. So like before, I was using my phone and I was trying to shoot something and I got a phone call, it messes up the video file. You're not going to get a phone call on your camera, right? So that's what's nice about having a dedicated separate camera. And I just picked the GH5 because it has really good quality, has really good formats, a ton of formats that you can choose from, good color science, and it doesn't need you don't need a lot of autofocus for outdoor golf, because you don't need that depth of field. And so it's been a really good camera for me in terms of, creating golf content. So other pros is that, simple operation. You just flip it on, hit one button, you see on the screen that's recording, you're good to go. Battery life is going to be really good, obviously, because you can have a bunch of different batteries that you can buy on the side and just put them in when one is low. And then also capacity is definitely something, like in terms of memory, is not an issue because you can just have more memory cards. So big upgrade from an iPhone. But like I said, an iPhone is something, or a smartphone is something that you can definitely have a channel on and make great content for golf. And then lastly, for this GH5 in particular, is that they do not have overheating issues. So some of the cameras before that are more affordable in terms of the Sony realm, they have overheating issues if you shoot in like 4K for a long period of time. I took this GH5 Mark II out in, my very hot I think it was called intense heat that most intense heat I've ever played in. And the camera performed like a champ. It had no issues, was just shooting 4K all day. And yeah, I couldn't be more happy with the results of that. So obviously the cons of this setup is pretty much, it's a lot more expensive, like way more expensive if you're going to buy this in addition to a phone. And the larger setup does attract a lot of eyes, and sometimes you get a lot of skeptics and looking over at you and saying, hey, what are you doing? Or, you kind of get this feeling that, if you have a big setup, it's definitely going to attract attention, and sometimes you don't want that. So those are, the two cameras that I have used in building this channel. But like I said, a lot of it in the beginning was on my iPhone. So like I said, a lot of people have gone far with just shooting on iPhone, and pretty much that goes through, the progression of cameras. So that's like the cameras and, the gear that I use to capture the footage. But when I'm on the course, this breaks down to even further categories of like my filming setups. So I have two separate filming setups. I'll put a picture up here. One is the push cart setup, and the other is the golf cart setup. So I try to walk as much as possible because I just enjoy walking. However, sometimes when I don't walk, I need a setup for when I take a golf cart, which I think is more of a pain to film in my personal opinion. But for the push cart setup, I used, pretty much when I had the iPhone, I had the DJI OM4 gimbal, and I've tried the OM3, the OM5, and for other reasons, not worth mentioning right now, the OM4 is probably your best bet. The OM5 has a smaller battery and a shorter, sleep saver mode, and it turns off after a minute or something. But the sleep saver mode on the OM4 is pretty long, and it's long enough to wait in between shots to where it won't completely turn off when it's in a sleep mode. So that's why I picked the OM4. So basically, I would take the DJI OM4 gimbal, and then I had like a little mini tripod stand on the bottom of it, and I'd shove it into the umbrella holder of my push cart. And so basically I'd walk up to my ball, like maybe a couple yards behind it, set up my shot, start recording, pick up my club, go up to my ball, hit the ball, come back to my cart after I hit it, and then stop recording, and then start moving to my ball with my push cart. So it was really effective way to film the round because you don't have to mess around with the tripod. I think that's why I don't like, a golf cart in this case, or like going in a golf cart when I play golf. I prefer, if I'm shooting content, I much prefer just having my camera in the umbrella holder with a little tripod stand. And the main thing with the gimbal, it's like easy to like frame your shot. But then on with my bigger camera, make sure I have like a ball head tripod where I can like adjust it and make sure it's level. And so yeah, it's so much simpler than using a setup for when I'm walking and when I'm using a golf cart. So pretty much that's how I do things now. And I have the Rode Wireless Go mics, which are very good. Like I said, we'll link them down below. In terms of the golf cart setup, I have a monopod, pretty much like a long, just extendable monopod. And at the bottom, it has like 3 little legs. And then the main problem with a couple things with a tripod is that a tripod is really unwieldy because there's 3 legs that you have to adjust and take out and set up and make sure they're stable. With the monopod, it's just with the small 3 legs, it's a lot easier to put in and out of your golf cart, and it's just so much easier to set up and tear down before your shot. So the monopod that I have, I'll put in the link in the description below. But yeah, I just have a ball head that I tighten and untighten for framing the shot. I put it on the ground. There's like an extra 5-pound weight that I put on there, or 2.5-pound weight, to make sure it's a little bit more stable. I hit record, walk up to the ball, hit the ball, come back, stop recording, and get back into the cart. So that's pretty much my golf cart setup and my, push cart setup when I'm filming on the course. So if you have any questions, just let me know. But basically, with all of these, you just want to make sure you're able to set up and then break down, your rig as fast as possible to not inhibit pace of play. And I find that I play the same speed almost, because when I'm not set up to film, or if I'm not filming my golf round, I'm pretty just I have more time to think about my shot. But in terms of the actual time it takes to hit or anything, it's pretty much the same with or without recording, because I've gotten pretty efficient at playing golf and filming content on the course. So I guess future setups or other options, I've seen people use camcorders a lot. If anytime you have a third shooter or a second shooter, someone that can film you while you're on the course, a camcorder is a great option because it has really good zoom. Zooms on mirrorless cameras are very expensive. So yeah, a camcorder it has long recording time is like really ideal. And I guess that's like kind of like where, I see myself in the future is basically having a second shooter with a camcorder that's probably like Panasonic to keep it in the same color science. So yeah, maybe if it ever grows to be something bigger, that's what I'll do. But I've seen people use camcorders. People really like Sony because they have good autofocus. But ultimately, that is my setup in terms of how I capture footage on course and then the devices that I have used on the channel. So pretty much, yeah, iPhone to the GH5, and then improving audio over time. I highly recommend the wireless Go mics. You just strap them on and then you can just golf with it and capture really good audio as a suggestion. So now it's time to move on to editing footage. So first things first, just to tell you right now, there are no shortcuts when editing footage. It's going to take time. It's just like picking up anything new. It will take forever at first, and then with repetition and practice, you get a little faster, and you get a little bit better. Then you find ways to optimize, and then really figure out how to do things faster. But in the beginning, it's going to take forever. So there is no easy formula just to kind of just throw all your files together and then instantly get something that's worthy of posting on YouTube or just posting in general. So that being said, pretty much my best tip for all this editing is actually from Golf Sidekick. He made a video on how to make these videos as well. And it's to put your graphics in like a Google Doc or a PowerPoint and then take screenshots from that and then put it into your videos. So that's something that I learned from another creator that has been extremely helpful. That being said, the first way I used to edit videos was iMovie on my iPhone. So even my most popular videos, like one of my Pebble Beach video, that was edited on my iPhone with my, on my small iPhone Pro 12 Max, and I pretty much used the tools available to me. So the Shot Tracer Pro app has graphics where it pops up and says, your name and how many over you are and what hole you're on. So I use that on the Shot Tracer app. And then, yeah, pretty much the pros and cons of that. Pros is that it's pretty cheap. On the iPhone, it's free. And all you have to do is pay like $6 for the Shot Tracer app and you're good to go. The Shot Tracer app is a little finicky. Like I said, it's a tool that you need to learn. It's not something that is just like plug and play that you're going to instantly get beautiful shot tracers. It's going to take time and you need to learn that tool in order to have good results, but it will take some time. The cons of that, obviously, there's limited editing capabilities for sure, and it's tedious to edit on a small form factor. So I was kind of like made it a challenge to edit everything on my iPhone because I thought it was kind of cool. But over time, when I started creating more in volume, it got really tedious to edit, on a tiny screen. So pretty much, yeah. I use iMovie on iPhone for a good chunk of my videos, and some of my most successful videos came from that. And so, like I said, it's more about the content, not as much about like how beautiful things look, although it does help. So some tips on that using iMovie on iPhone: don't export in HDR, like I said. Same reason why if you export in HDR and you start uploading it to places, you're gonna get a weird looking, like whitish, muted, gray, green looking video. And then shoot in 4K if you can, and then export in 1080. Because if you crop in on a 4K video and you export in 1080, you won't have any like quality loss. And punching in on videos and you'll see a lot of YouTubers do this where they like zoom in a little bit, punch in a little bit to make the person that watching, watch more intently and catch their eye. So that's something that I did a lot on iMovie on the iPhone. Was this like I would shoot in 4K but export in 1080p and then punch in a little bit to, like, if I was chipping a ball, I'd chip it, then cut it, then punch in on the next clip to where my ball landed and you could see it roll up. Those kind of little things really help people and keeps people's attention to your video. So that was the first way I edited the videos, was on iMovie on iPhone. So moving to the next form factor, I actually used Lumafusion on iPad, which is kind of like a finger friendly, definitely meant for use your hands video editor. but it's more timeline based, which is kind of like the bigger programs out there like DaVinci or Final Cut or Premiere. So it was pretty much my foray because I took it a little bit more seriously. I was using an iPad to edit now. I'm still exporting in 4K, in 1080p. And pretty much the pros on that is that it has something called keyframing. Keyframing is a video technique where you insert markers in a video, and then between the two markers, you tell the video editing software what you want to happen to that video. So like if you want to zoom, you mark 2 keyframes. You say in the first frame, I want 100% scale. Second frame, I want 200% scale. And then by the second frame, it'll zoom in 200%. So that's what keyframing is, very high level. And the editing on a bigger form factor was definitely nice. I will say, like, editing on an iPhone got really tiring and really old really fast. And so it was nice to edit on the couch on an iPad and, make videos for the channel in that way. Some cons with that, still it's a limited software in terms of editing capabilities. And it's even less than industry standard. Everyone's using probably DaVinci and Premiere and like maybe less Final Cut. But if you invest a lot of time and skill into Lumafusion, it's like you're not really building outside of that. The concepts are very similar, but I think it's more for hobbyists in my opinion. And so I didn't want to invest too much more time in Lumafusion, so I upgraded to the next thing. And then the last con about this whole setup is that Shot Tracer app you cannot use in 4K. You can only do Shot Tracer app, on the mobile version in 1080. So I could, edit in 4K, export in 4K pretty easily, but my Shot Tracers were still in 1080, which got me into this like secondary mode. So I got a Mac Mini just so I could do Shot Tracers in 4K, so I can use the Shot Tracer Pro app on Mac OS. And so I was airdropping files between my Mac Mini and my iPad, and then I started exporting a few videos in 4K in that way. But then pretty much that was too tedious for me, and I upgraded and went all in editing on my laptop. I got a MacBook Pro, and I decided to go Final Cut route because I didn't want to pay a subscription for editing software. I was thinking about maybe doing DaVinci Resolve, but ended up sticking with the Mac because I had an iPhone at that time. I was like, oh yeah, this is really nice. I can import my iPhone footage to my computer. And then now if I were to do it all over again, I might have stuck with DaVinci or Premiere because now I'm using a actual camera that's not an iPhone. So I'm not married to the iPhone ecosystem or the Apple ecosystem, but I still enjoy using it. So no problems there. So pretty much the pros of, a MacBook and pretty much, Final Cut is that it's very flexible editing wise. It's still doesn't have all the features. Like a lot of people who do Shot Tracers natively without the Shot Tracer Pro app, they create their own in After Effects, which is an Adobe product. So yeah, but still Final Cut Pro is very flexible. Now I can, with this setup, with my current setup, I can use the Shot Tracer Pro app, which is higher res, and then it handles most like weird edge cases, which is nice. So very flexible. But the cons of all this, MacBook Pro, Final Cut Pro, Shot Tracer Pro, is that it's expensive. Like it is very expensive, but for me, it's worth it. I've been, invested in this for quite some time now, and I think it's worth it. And tips I have to give if you go this route, like Google is your friend. If you want to learn how to do something, most likely someone has made a video somewhere of it and showed you how to do something. So definitely that is like something to take into consideration. So that being said, I talked about the setups and how I capture footage with the iPhone and my mirrorless camera. I also talked about, my editing, the ways I edited footage, over time. And so something that if you're still around, my last thing is what I want to talk about is playing while filming. So absolutely, yes, it adds strokes to your total score when you're filming, just because it's so much more to do and you can't focus 100% mentally on the golf. That's a little bit more pressure too, like the video where I choked. I could have shot easily in the 70s, but I was thinking, oh man, I got to do it for the video. Ended up choking and, didn't shoot a good round after all that. I will say sometimes it does make it a little bit less enjoyable. Sometimes you just want to hang out with your friends, chill, and not think about recording anything. And, with this particular, hobby and recording while you're on the course, it takes away from that enjoyment sometimes. But sometimes you capture really fun moments because, then you have footage from, things that you'll never forget because you have it on camera. So that's also something to think about. I will say if you're not the greatest at golf in the first place, it makes it that much harder. So you need to be really good and fast at, setting up and taking down your setup to capture footage, because you're just going to slow people down. So, they say it doesn't matter if you're really bad at golf as long as you play fast, which I totally agree. But if you're really bad at golf and then you're really bad at shooting videos and you're not fast enough there, it's just going to, upset everyone who you're playing with and ultimately not be great for the group. So it will be harder if you're not great at golf. So if you're going to courses that are really busy, I would probably, be wary of yourself and be more self-conscious. So go during an off hour or just try to shoot only a few holes to see if that's something you want to do. Don't do the full 18 or full 9. Just start shooting and then do one hole. See how that goes and edit that and export that. Do a short, film vertically, So yeah, that being said, if you're not great at golf, filming might not be, not might be for you. And so I guess my other thing is that over time, just practice setting up and taking down your camera. Over time, you'll build that as a skill, and then you really just need to think, how can I get faster? And so you don't have to focus on the filming and just focus more on golf. So that being said, if you have any questions, let me know. That's kind of what I want to discuss. Like I said, I'm not releasing any videos on this Monday because, I'm going on a trip. I have a lot of time to edit on the plane, but, lots of content that's still to come that I haven't edited yet, but there's no way I was going to be able to get something out in a timely manner. So just decided to record a podcast. So hope you guys enjoyed that one. Keep chasing, and we'll see you in the next one.